Let's continue here with Jonathan David. Guys, we know it was a slow start to the season for him. In fact, he picked up his first goal 11 games into the year, but then he does end up finishing with 13. He did score some big goals, scored one in that final game of the season. So would you say, Gareth, because I don't know what your expectations were, did he meet them or did he exceed them for you?
Jonathan David absolutely exceeded my expectations. From scoring 18 goals in Belgium, which is a decent league, stepping up to play in a top 5 league in Europe, scoring 13 goals. And I look at when players score goals as well. Not only scoring the first goal against Angers on the weekend, scoring the match winner against PSG. Listen to the other teams in Ligue 1 who he scored against. Lyon, Marseille, he scored a brace against them. Monaco, these are all the best teams in the French league, and he showed up when he needed to the most. I thought he showed a well-rounded game as well. So he's 21 years of age. He's champion of France, a starting key player in that team. I'm not sure what anyone else expected, but this surpassed my expectations.
I think expectations were probably too high in the first place because we are so excited about these young Canadian players, and I think he still surpassed them. So I wouldn't normally say that you could, just take the good part of the season and write off the bad bit, and obviously the start of the season was difficult for him. But I think in this case, when you look at the fact that the Belgian league had been cancelled early because of the pandemic, not playing for that long, coming into a new club and a higher league was obviously very difficult. It was pretty kind of unique circumstances, and I think that kind of explains why the slow start was as it was. But then again, like Will said, you look at the second half of the season and he was fantastic. Only Kylian Mbappe, when you take out penalties, scored more goals after the new year than Jonathan David. He was a leading player, perhaps the most important player, or certainly I would say top 3 or 4 on the team that won the title and won the title in shocking fashion, right? Knocking off PSG with all their money and their star players. So there's no way you can describe it other than anything as a roaring success and way beyond what I think you could have realistically expected this year for Jonathan David.
Well, gentlemen, this is a OneSoccer expert specialty, and you're already going to know it. On the question alone, you're going to know that this was a knock on the door saying, Andy, you have to ask this question, and that is, Jonathan David, given the season that he's had with Lille, ending it as a champion, would you say, Oliver, that he has had the most impressive season in Europe by a Canadian ever?
That's a good one. I don't know. I don't think you can really compare directly to, obviously, Alfonzo Davies is the one that comes to mind. I think when you talk about which Canadian player has kind of ascended to the highest level, both individually in terms of their own performances and also with their team in terms of their achievements, I think you still have to say it's Alfonzo Davies winning the Champions League. I think he's played better than any Canadian in the history of the country has played in Europe, and he's won the biggest prize. So he still ranks above everyone for me in that regard. But I think the thing about Jonathan David is, and not to take anything away from Alfonzo Davies or being a fullback, the importance of that position, but Jonathan David was really relied upon by Lille to be, the leading man, the goal scorer. Wheels mentioned the teams he scored against there, and a lot of those games against PSG, against Marseille, against Lyon, the derby game, those were in the second half of the season, right in the run-in to winning the title, and obviously it ended with him getting a goal and winning a penalty in the game to win the title. So I think in terms of playing, such a key, prominent role in a team winning a major European league, Jonathan David might have done that to an extent that no Canadian has done before, and that's an incredible accomplishment in its own right. However you come out on which is higher ranking between him and Davies.
Yeah, the question's not valid, Andy, and I know that you're asking the question. This isn't a criticism of you, it's a question, because Alfonso Davies won 5 trophies in one season, and the mere suggestion that David, because he's a striker, plays a more prominent role in the team than a left back completely discredits defenders. And this is what bothers everyone when the Ballon d'Or conversation comes up every year and top defenders are never included. They never win the World Player of the Year, and that sticks with defenders, right? Alfonso Davies won 5 trophies, and it also came in a better league. The French league, it's not me saying it because I don't believe it to be the case, but many people believe it's a one-team league. league, and if any other side other than PSG doesn't win it, then it's all PSG's fault, and they fail to give credit to other sides. I do not believe that to be the case, but Alfonso Davies, it was a record-setting year last year. That's why it was so special, and that's the best season that any Canadian players ever had in the history of football.
Well, you notice what I did there, Gareth, to all aspiring sportscasters out there. You just throw someone else under the bus for the question, and then you proceed to ask the question, and you wipe your hands clean of it. But Jonathan David, I mean, his stock really, is at an all-time high right now, Gareth. So should Lille think of cashing in? Should they sell him?
I don't think that Lille should, but I think if you're Jonathan David, I'm not sure if things get much better for Lille than they went this year. Look, their manager is leaving to go to Nice. Galtier, a player who showed a lot of faith in Jonathan David, he's left. Luis Campos, the technical director who brought him to the club, he is left as well. And I think there might be a number of players that are sold by Lille this offseason. The goalkeeper's already gone to AC Milan. Samari might go to Liverpool. There's interest in Akone. So this team as is might look a lot different. Botman's getting a lot of attention as well, the center back. So if you're Jonathan David, does it get much better with Lille? If a team, a bigger club that can pay him more money, give him a bigger spotlight comes knocking, does he not answer the door? I would be tempted because, I mean, Lille's hit their height. This is their pinnacle right here.
Yeah, Lille will need to sell players, I think, this summer. One, because they always do, and two, because their financial issues have become even greater, you know, on the back of the pandemic. I just think they might look at other players in their squad and think some of these players, maybe their value has peaked. Maybe we'll never get more for them than we would off the back of this league title. And so they're the ones to maybe sell on now. Jonathan David, he's still only 21. He's still only had half a season, really, where he's really been successful in this league. I think as a player, he could benefit from another year at Lille. And I think Lille might look at it and say his value is only going to get bigger. So yes, we could cash in on him now and it will help us. But he might be worth even more next summer or the summer after that. And that might be the prudent financial decision. The question, I think Wills is right, is what does David think? Because if there are other players, like some of the names he mentioned leaving, Galtier is gone as the head coach. What is this team going to look like next season? And is it going to be the best place, even though you have Champions League football, for David to further his career and to take the next step if he's suddenly got, not nearly the caliber of teammates around him that he had this year? I think that is an interesting question and something that will probably be on his camp's mind going into the summer window.
There's no denying that the face of the Canadian men's national team is Alfonso Davies. You ask any Canadian to name somebody on the team, they'll say him. And of course, playing in Bundesliga, and we talked about his accomplishments, but he was already popular before moving there, before becoming a regular in the lineup. I wonder how much of that is the MLS factor. And I feel like Jonathan David, Ollie, is kind of creeping into that Atiba Hutchinson category where, Atiba has just been so successful, but still relatively unknown on Canadian soil. And now it seems like David is kind of going that way as well. But where would you see his level of popularity in France?
I think it's rising. I think, in Europe generally, you need to play in the Champions League, as we've seen with Davies, to really achieve that kind of, highest level of acclaim and fame. And hopefully next year that's coming for Jonathan David. But I think that's one of the things, the perception of him in France is one of the things that's made the second half of the season so impressive for me, was that there were a lot of people in the first half of the season who were calling him a bust, right? Who were calling him, saying that Lille had paid too much money for a player who wasn't really delivering. And I think for a young kid like him, turning 21 in January earlier this year, to show the mental fortitude he showed, to turn his season around, to deal with that criticism, and it is criticism on a level in Europe that you don't really get over here, I don't think. That was extremely impressive for any young player, but particularly for one who we should remember was playing in Ottawa in amateur youth soccer until he was 18 years old, and now he's a champion of a major European league at 21. So John Herdman's always called him the Iceman, and I think that kind of just level-headedness and refusal to get carried away either way, get too high or too low, has really served him well again this season.
I think his name is much more familiar now, but how he takes the next step is doing it in the Champions League, right? Like, again, there's disrespect towards the French league just because there's been a one-team show for how long, and one team has vastly more sums of money than the rest. But if he goes and performs and scores goals in the Champions League, that's when that name starts to be mentioned a little bit more. He's already being linked some rumors and the gossip to some big clubs, and that's how I think a lot of casual fans become more familiar with the name. And I don't think he hits those heights that Davies does until he's with a top club. Like, it's one thing being able to have access, and I thought it was great all season being able to watch here on OneSoccer, but I mean, Lille is not Manchester United, Real Madrid, Barcelona, Juventus, you know what I mean? The biggest clubs in football today. Once he makes a move to one of those clubs, then I think that he hits the heights of Alfonzo Davies.
By the way, do you ever wonder if we're on the same planet as some other countries? I mean, they're partying in the streets, and I can't even have a barbecue in my backyard yet. I digress.
Every day.
We're not going to get into that again. Yeah. But if we can all agree that Kyle Larin, given what we saw from him, what he also did this season in winning a title, scoring goals with the national team, and obviously given what Jonathan David has done, if we both agree that they're going to play up front for Team Canada, what does that mean, Gareth, for Alfonzo Davies' aspirations to be in that attacking role with the national team?
I think all three of them need to be on the field at once and can play with one another. Remember when they started against Bermuda, it was Davies in an attacking left position, Kyle Larin playing underneath Lucas Cavallini. And I think it might not be like for like in terms of the way they play, but Jonathan David will fill the Cavallini role in that formation. It'll be Junior Hoylett or Theo Corbiano on the right-hand side. And I think that this is where we're at in Canadian football, that we have some very attack-minded players. That's where the balance of power, that's where the big money players are now in this Canadian team. I think if you put a Eustachio, a Piet, and a Tiba, Mark-Anthony Kaye behind, I think you're covered appropriately. But Larin likes to play underneath now, likes to play off one of the two sides, the left or the right. So I do think that all those players can fit in a preferred starting 11 against the biggest and brightest in CONCACAF.